when it comes to talking about order flow auctions in TradFi, we really have N equal to 1, and it's not really a true N yet because it's just on the proposal stage. So I am going to talk about the proposal and use it, though, as sort of an organizing or central point where I can branch out and talk about some of the other things that are likely to be of broader interest to this audience. So, what is the SEC proposal? Here it is, and it's 399 pages. I'll assume you're all familiar with it. It's been out there for about 2 years now, and
It's a page turner.
by now, for lawyers, it is. The commission is proposing a new rule, 615. Remember that number. To promote a more competitive, transparent, and efficient market structure with resulting benefits to investors. And it will require that certain orders of individual investors, this is retail we're talking about, be exposed to competition, fair and open auctions, before such orders could be executed by trading centers internally. That is, it's requiring the possibility of interaction. So, under the proposal, what would the market look like? Well, let's suppose the national best bid and offer in XYZ, it's $10.05 bid per share, offered at 10.10, and a retail broker, Robinhood, say, receives buy XYZ limit 10.20. And hypothetically, if an execution could be delivered to the customer at, say, 10.09, the customer would realize what is called price improvement. The price improvement, the background idea is this. The national best offer is 10.10. So if we immediately lifted that offer, we should be able to get our stocks bought at 10.10 with no particular effort or strategizing or forethought. So why was the customer limit price 10.20? That's really not too important. Maybe they were protecting themselves against adverse market movements, but still wanted the order to be marketable. So if you can get 10 cents, 10.10 at the offer, and you're actually paying 10.09, that difference between the national best offer and the actual execution price is called the price improvement. It's just a little bit extra that the market, quote unquote, is giving us. Well, not really. I mean, there is equilibrium here, but relative to the quote, we're a little bit better off. And under the proposal, the order would have to be placed in an auction, and the entities bidding in this auction would be bidding to offer this customer price improvement. Now, the rule proposal, like all SEC rules, was accompanied by a comment period. The rule was prescribed in 2022, and the comment period expired in just this past March in 2023. If you missed the deadline, don't feel sad. You can still enter comments. They are still being accepted. But what's happening to this rule? Other rules that the SEC had proposed about this time have already been finalized. This one has not. For whatever reason, there seems to be a little bit more of a deliberate process being followed. What might happen? Well, the SEC could say, we like the rule as we originally wrote it. Thank you very much. Or, this is more common, it does read the comment letters and sort of trims the sails and makes adjustments where it can, and either finalizes the rule. Sometimes there's a major rewrite and it's reproposed. Sometimes just deferred. There's no action on it. All these things are possibilities. Now, that is sort of the institutional context with which this is taking place. But don't forget, what's driving this ultimately are some very powerful economic forces. Retail investors, we call them uninformed, and that's a sort of term of art. By uninformed, I want to be very clear, we do not mean stupid, all right? They have different objectives in using this market, and frankly, they are not going to waste their time putting in high-speed lines to the market centers and doing all of the other things that might make them, quote unquote, informed. So, but they're small in their order sizes. There are many of them, and usually they are independent, not always, but these attributes makes them very desirable as counterparties. They are safe people to trade against. And it's certainly, if you're making a market against them, it's going to be a profitable market. So this flow is valuable. The auctions in the 615 proposal are supposed to be an improvement over existing practices. Right? So what are these existing practices? How do they work? So traditionally, and the New York Stock Exchange was founded in 1792. I'm not going to go back that far, but let's go back maybe only 30 years. And the idea there, the general model was the customers would go through brokers. They pay a commission to the broker, who would then forward their order to the exchange. And at every stage, there were fees, of course. The customer paid a commission to the broker paid service fees to the exchange, and those service fees were taken out of the commission. Payment for order flow, or PFOF, as it is often pronounced. We do not predict we will see that word in any poetry anytime soon, but PFOF, the way it works is the consumer sends the order to the broker. No commission, as we know, those are gone now. But the broker, instead of sending the order on to an exchange, sends it to a dealer or a wholesaler, and in consideration of this retail order being delivered to this dealer rather than another, this dealer will rebate or pay the broker for the order flow. So that's sort of the map of flow of funds. Now, so if a stock, for example, XYZ, 2020 bid offered at 2030, if E-Trade has an order to buy at the market, E-Trade might send its order to a wholesaler, G1 Execution Services, who would then rebate back to E-Trade about a half of a penny per share. So that'll give you some idea of the magnitude. Now, here are the suspicions. The PFOF is passed to the broker, and the broker is supposed to be the customer's agent. Well, will the broker disregard the agent's interests? Um, Let me keep the situation essentially similar, change some of the identities. Um, a professor, moi, has some of the university's money to spend on some computer equipment. So perhaps the professor goes to a vendor and says, okay, quote me a price. And the vendor quotes a price and then suggests, or I could charge $100 more and cut you in for $50 of that. All right. Does this make it clear what the concern is? The expression commercial bribery has been used here, and yet PFOF has been a fact of my professional life, at least, since the 1980s. Why has it been tolerated? Certainly, we've been aware of the practice. Well, some history here. Before there was PFOF, there were these things called soft dollars. And the way that would work is a fund manager might pay a broker a very large commission that, of course, would be charged to the fund's investors. And then the commission would be partially rebated with what were called soft dollar credits that can be used to purchase computer equipment, data, research services. I had been working in my first job, I've been working for the consulting firm for 2 months before somebody told me I was being paid by soft dollars. So this is not something abstract to me. For a while there, it was putting food on the table. So by these PFOF arrangements, oh, and in one instance, I'm not making this up, it's in the SEC online files, PFOF soft dollars were used to pay for decorating services and, in one extreme case, alimony. So by comparison with soft dollars, PFOF must have seemed amazingly straightforward. And this is my conjecture. And so when the question came up, should we ban it? I do know in these discussions, I remember them, the fear was that it would be driven underground. It would still be there, but much less visible. So the SEC, as it often does, opted for disclosure, which is what we have today. And Rule 615 is sort of a step to take that payment for order flow away, to bring things into a competitive market where the benefits would flow right to the investor. So how well is the current system working? Better than you might think. I'm going to talk briefly about two reports. This is from Durberg, Skelko, and Werner. And they looked in detail about these two reports, 605 and 606, that market centers and brokers have to file. And these provide very detailed dollars and cents estimates of what the traders, what the investors are paying. Right? So the 605 reports are on the websites. And for the brokers, well, my broker has to say, well, in the month of July, I received so many retail orders. Some of them went to G1, some of them went to Citadel. And so this practice is pretty well documented. Now, to show you what one of the studies came up with by way of estimates, let's consider two hypothetical trades where 10 bid, 10, 20 offered, and a wholesaler just matches the national best offer. So suppose, and the national best bid. So suppose that the wholesaler buys from one customer at her bid or at the national best bid and sells to the other customer at the national best offer. So the quoted spread here is 20 cents, and that's the round trip revenue on this pair of orders. All right. Now, of course, the wholesaler can't keep the whole spread because they have expenses, but that's sort of the starting point. Now, this market, things are negotiable. So suppose the wholesaler gives 2 cents price improvement to the buyer, a penny of price improvement to the seller, and also pays 0.8 cents per share to the buyer's broker and 0.09 shares to the seller's broker. So you see how things are getting divided up here. There's this revenue. Part of it we're going to give back to the customers, the buyer and the seller, and part of it we're going to have to send as a consideration to the brokers. All right. So in this example, about 15% of the quoted spread goes to price improvement. The customer benefits from that. 8.5% goes to PFOF. The broker benefits from that. And the remainder is the retained revenue. So these are the estimates over DSW's full sample. So of the total revenue, about 24% goes back to the customers in terms of price improvement, and then PFOF turns out to be a relatively small fraction of this. So to use the analogy, if we want to claim that PFOF is bribery, it's more like frequent flyer miles than you know, a real substantial consideration. This, by the way, is where the orders come from and where they go. The biggest broker in their sample is TD Ameritrade, and here is where, in green, their orders go: Citadel, Virtu, and G1. Robinhood, Citadel, Virtu, and G1. Now, there's one entity I want to briefly mention here, Jane Street. So Citadel, Virtu, and G1 have been around forever. Jane Street was a new entrant in that market. And when you're a regulator, you sort of look at what are the barriers to entry.
So these guys on the right-hand side are the wholesale? They are the ones who get 75%?
Yes. Yes. All right. They get 75%. That's right. They are, last I heard, they were not charities. And, but they do have, as they will be first to remind us, expenses. All right. This is just the trading revenue. So what DSW conclude is that this model provides significant trading cost savings for retail investors, as opposed to if these orders went to an exchange.
This is not equilibrium thinking, is it?
Thank you. Paper on that.
I imagine a number of people in the audience do. And yes, there are counter arguments here. I'll present some of them. But despite the industry concentration, three facts suggest that the wholesalers don't have market power. First of all, they monitor and they reward wholesalers who do a good job. All right, so the brokers are monitoring their delegations. Also, this business has, like most intermediation, and I suspect most crypto applications, has strong economies to scale. So it's not surprising that on the right-hand side of this picture, we didn't see 100 small fish.
But I think those two lines are contradictory. If there are economies of scale, then you have market power.
No, not necessarily. If the agent is being, if the agent is being monitored, all right, it's like any other service. All right, Bruno's skeptical. If I had a camera, I'd flip it around and I'd show you a rather disbelieving countenance. But be that as it may, and I will get to some of the counter arguments. You're right to be skeptical. And also, when Jane Street entered, if there had been an uncompetitive market before, we would have expected that Jane Street, by cutting its cost or entering at a new lower price point, could have, that would have been necessary for them to get market share. All right. And they entered, but it did not significantly change the liquidity costs. So our data tend to show that it's the retail brokerages who have the power in this ecosystem, not the big bad wholesalers, if you believe this. But there is a competing study, yeah, it's kind of competing. Huang, Jorion, and Schwartz. And rather than focus on these Rule 605 and 606 web postings, and they aren't audited, all right? So who knows how authoritative they are, but these authors did something really astounding. They actually submitted orders. And with their own money, they set up a controlled experiment and submitted orders to different brokers under different circumstances, all right? So this is about as close as we can get to a randomized control. I should point out, most of these orders were for one share. So the quantities involved here would have been maybe small retail traders. But the idea, as in with any sort of well-controlled experiment, you can draw conclusions that would be a little bit messier to draw even from a so-called natural experiment. So what did they find? Well, unlike DSW, these authors find that brokers were not responsive to differences in how well their wholesalers were behaving. But one broker did monitor, and for them, the new entrant was associated with, when Jane Street came in, they did detect a decline in the improved price improvement. So that tells us a couple of things. One is entry is possible, and it does tell us that there is a little bit of slack, all right, or rents still in the system. All right, and which is their conclusion. And I think that their methodology is probably more sensitive. Um, so, back to the particulars of 615. The idea is the way retail orders are currently handled right now, by pre-arrangement with the broker, a retail order will be shipped only to one wholesaler. And there, nobody else in the market sees it or has the opportunity to interact with it. And so once that order is received, there's no more competition. All right. As soon as the wholesaler and the broker arrange an agreement, there's no more competition on the individual orders. And this is what the alternative was supposed to be. In these auctions, the idea is there will be different bidders who will bid for their to interact with the order and possibly give it better terms of trade than they would achieve if the order had only gone to one broker. All right. To open up the market, let's let in some competition. So another example, 10 bid, 1020 offered. Citadel sends a retail order or receives a retail order through, say, from Robinhood. If they want, they can sell directly to the retail trader at the midpoint, 1010. They do have that option. Or they can put the order into the auction. And suppose in the auction there are 3 participants. Column C is offering the highest level of price improvement. At that point, Citadel can match the auction price, or if it doesn't want to match, it can it will then go to one of that bidder who bid the lowest. Now, these auctions are going to run for 100 milliseconds. And if there are no other participants in the auction, well, then Citadel can sell to the customer at the national best offer, that is with no price improvement. Now, the thing is, the national best offer is determined at the end of the auction, and it's external to the auction. So there's a little bit of risk here for the customer. Well, we've taken the customer's order and done this little 100 millisecond auction, the price might have deteriorated. I might have improved, but more likely to deteriorate. So again, to summarize the economic force of this, yeah, question?
So in this way in which you can do price matching ex post,
Yeah.
I mean, in other instances, there has been evidence that this leads to collusive behavior. Is there any kind of acknowledgement or discussion regarding that potential?
Price matching ex post. How would that work?
That's what you described.
Oh, it's only the entrant that is doing it. All right, it's only it's only in this case Citadel who had the order in the first place.
I think
The optionality of price matching allows for Citadel to offer
They
some optimal price, right? So
yes, they can price match, but they still face more competition.
no, because that's not. I mean,
No, they can't.
Remember about that. Talking about the specialists and saying this creates a. This is similar to what the NYC did with the specialists, and it creates adverse selection.
Granted, it does. Now, so
Talking about old things.
talking about old things, yes, Bruno, you're absolutely right. So, yes, I don't want to defend the proposal on this score.
Is the 100 milliseconds set by the proposal?
The 100 milliseconds is mentioned in the proposal. It is not something that I think is carved in stone. All right. And that's one of the reasons I think this proposal is very important. This is the closest we are going to get to frequent auctions in our current traditional markets. So I would suspect if this proposal were passed and it worked out well, then we might see more of it. But, and as you know, Eric Budish and others have advocated for frequent batch auctions. This is a concrete proposal where the SEC is saying, well, maybe.
So, who actually runs the auction?
A qualified auction facility. Cam, look in the definitions. No, I'm,
Yeah, on page 630.
no, this was a good question.
But the
Yes.
question is, there's obviously costs involved in doing this, and have those costs been kind of specified versus the benefits?
The answer is, I haven't looked at the cost benefit analysis, but they are required by law. They, the ones that I have looked at have had, so much, shall we call it, slippage, that I don't know as I would find them completely credible. But yes, some thought has been given to this. But the idea is it's the listing exchange that would probably run these auctions. And these would not be expensive to run. That's at least compared to the price improvement.
Joel, I had a question. So if they allow this order flow to go to the main exchange, that'll improve the bid-ask spread because at the moment these are being sucked out of the price mechanism in the main exchange. No?
Oh, no, with these orders have not been destined for the main exchange at all. There is marketable orders as a practical matter don't.
But I'm wondering with the auction, will it?
With the auctions, no. With the auctions, it's not that now it's the NYSE's order. It's not. The auctions are like a utility.
Is there any other precedent for the SEC ever making up its own market structure?
You mean mandating, say, auctions, for example? Sure. For example, the limit up, limit down rules. They require reopening auctions at the end of the 15-minute, at the end of the 5-minute trading pauses. So no, the SEC does not like to mandate market structure, but it has on occasion. Could a customer opt out? This is an excellent question. It's not clear to me. I can think of good reasons why you would allow the customer to opt out, but the way the proposal is written, it at least assumes that most of them would not. And now I take one more and then I want to keep going. Yeah.
So just to clarify, so my impression is that this exact price improvement auction already exists for many exchanges and it's offered. So would this proposal just mandate that every order has to be a price improvement auction?
I'm not sure, and I don't want to get into the institutional details too deeply here, but I don't think any exchange is offering exactly this.
For the options exchanges, they are.
Oh, the options exchanges. The options exchanges there, all right, I didn't include those slides, but the retail liquidity programs on auctions exchanges, well, the title of the article is, why did the retail liquidity programs on options exchanges fail? They're not regarded as successful. Low participation. Now, earlier, 10 or 5? 10, okay. Earlier, CMAC alluded to this paper by Spat, Ernst, and Son. It's a very nice analysis of the SEC's proposal. It is a stylized model, but CMAC identified the trade-off here. And I think the insight of this paper is they found a way to take an institutionally complex story and frame it as two alternative ways of doing an auction. And when it was framed in that way, they've identified the trade-off, namely that order by order auctions have better allocation efficiencies. That is, the right trades tend to get made, but the also in these order by order auctions, there is an aggravated winner's curse problem that makes the bidders shade their bids, fade the bids, not make them as aggressive as they otherwise would. So there's a trade-off here. Now, I'm going to switch gears for my last few minutes and talk about auctions in TradFi. So they're widely used. I'm going to say some things critical about auctions, but they're used for IPOs, opening and closing auctions on all of our stock exchanges, and also request for quote procedures, RFQs. They're a kind of auction that are widely used in dealer markets. Now, how do economists think about auctions? Well, I'm going to give you two viewpoints. Auction theory has been among the most successful branches of economics in recent years. Theory, developed rapidly, looked at for assistance in practical applications. One of the brightest spots in applied economics. Much research remains to be done, but the foundations are secure. The opposing view. Economists are proud of their role in pushing for them, but many of the auctions, including some that were designed with the assistance of auctions, have worked very badly. Yes, there is great progress in auction theory, but most of it is of very limited value. All right. Now, the punchline is they're written by the same person. All right. Separated by a span of only 3 years. Now, these are the publication dates. I suspect that the actual writing was more separated. But what we are looking here is a true believer who all of a sudden found out there was no tooth fairy. I mean, this is disillusion of the highest order. So what caused it? The context, late 1990s, all right, we're having 3G, 4G, and now 5G, and there are auctions for the cell spectrums. And these are, governments auctioning these things off for very large sums of money. Problem is, the experience was kind of mixed. We thought it was simple to run an auction. Not the way it turned out. Here's what Klemperer said. 6 European countries auctioned off spectrum licenses. In the UK and Germany, they were very successful, but in Austria, the Netherlands, Italy, and Switzerland, they didn't raise very much money at all. And superficially, these all look like the same mechanism. So Klemperer asks, what makes a successful auction? What really matters is the same concerns that an industry regulator, any industry regulator, would recognize as important. Discouraging, collusive, entry deterring, and predatory behavior. It's mostly just good economics. Now, collusion. For auctions to work, bidders must behave competitively. I've heard 30 auctions mentioned today. I am sure there was a strong competition assumption behind all of the theorem proofs. All right. In reality, it's important. Barriers to entry, very important. Predatory behavior, punishing other bidders. Some more examples, implicit collusion. So, just quick survey of some of the DeFi auctions. We have priority gas auctions with numerous small bidders, I believe. Their presumption of competition, fine. On the other hand, the auctions that proposers run to choose their builders, they're frequent, they're periodic, they're non-anonymous, and the building process, as we've seen, is strong economies of scale. How competitive are these? I haven't looked at the data, I don't know. But I'm seeing some head shaking here. All right. What about, and now I'm not, let me leave it at that. It's stuff we have to worry about beyond the math in our papers. The order flow auctions, and I do want to return to that. It's where I started. There are comment letters. I'm sure after you read all 400 pages of the rule, you read all 1,500 or so comment letters. They are mixed. Many of them evince strong appreciation for what the SEC is trying to do. Many commenters are in favor. Battaglio and Jennings are worried about the delays that these auctions are going to occasion. Also, there is some skepticism about participation in the auction. How many bidders are we really going to have? Is it going to be like a room at Christie's where we want to run an art auction and 2 people show up? So, and then there is the experience with the retail liquidity programs at options exchanges. So I'm going to leave it there.